During the funeral of a multimillionaire businessman, his 5-year-old son, who had remained silent since his mother's death, stunned everyone by bursting into desperate tears. Amid his sobs, he shouted with conviction, "Daddy is just sleeping." Moments later, the silence was shattered by sounds coming from inside the coffin, leaving everyone in shock as they discovered what was truly happening. The sun sets over Chicago's horizon, painting the sky in shades of amber that reflect off the mirrored windows of the Hunter Enterprises Tower. From the 50th floor, Hunter Maxwell gazes at the city his father helped shape, his fingers absent-mindedly caressing the wedding ring he still wears. At 35, his imposing figure contrasts with the melancholic look in his eyes. Clad in a custom-made Brioni suit, he perfectly embodies the role of a billionaire CEO. But behind the facade of success lies a man torn apart by loss. On his wrist, a platinum Patek Philippe Grandmaster Chime, a gift from his late father, relentlessly marks the passage of time since Catherine left. 2 years, 3 months, and 17 days. The $31 million watch symbolizes the empire he now commands. But for Hunter, it serves as a painful reminder of how long his son has remained silent. Downstairs, in a specially designed room within the executive suite, Aiden plays alone with his miniature Lamborghini cars, exact replicas of the vehicles in his father's private collection. The 5-year-old, dressed in Ralph Lauren kids' clothing, maintains a serene expression that masks the deep trauma that rendered him mute. His nanny, hired at a premium, watches his every move closely, knowing that any sound escaping his lips would be a cause for celebration. "Mr. Maxwell?" His executive assistant's voice echoes through the gold-plated intercom. "Your brother Edward is here for the board meeting." Hunter closes his eyes for a moment, adjusting his Hermes tie before granting entry. Tension fills the air as Edward walks through the massive oak double doors. 3 years older, Edward Maxwell III carries the weight of their father's name and the bitterness of being overlooked in the succession of the business. "Little brother," Edward smiles, though the gesture doesn't reach his eyes. His Tom Ford suit and John Lobb shoes silently declare that he belongs in this world just as much as Hunter does. "How's my favorite nephew?" "Aiden is fine, Edward. Let's get to the point. Last quarter's numbers." The boardroom is a monument to power and wealth. The Calacatta marble table, imported from Italy, reflects the soft glow of Baccarat chandeliers. On the walls, Basquiat and Rothko artworks, part of the family's vast art collection, silently witness the clash between the brothers. Edward slides a Mont Blanc folder across the table. 27% growth in the tech sector, 15% in real estate. "But I have concerns about the direction you're taking with the clean energy division." "Concerns?" Hunter raises an eyebrow. "The solar energy projects are revolutionizing the market. We've already signed contracts with 3 European countries. Dad always said oil is power. This obsession with sustainability is diluting our core business." The discussion is interrupted by a soft knock on the door. Samantha, the newly hired housekeeper for the Maxwell mansion in Gold Coast, enters discreetly. "Sorry to interrupt, Mr. Maxwell, but Aiden is having another episode." Hunter stands immediately, the weight of his responsibilities evident in every movement. On the way to the room where Aiden is, he passes through a corridor adorned with family photographs in Bulgari frames. Catherine smiles in every one of them, frozen in time, her green eyes shining with a life that ended too soon. He finds his son curled up under a mahogany table, silent tears streaming down his angelic face. The nanny, flustered, explains that he saw a photo of his mother on her phone, an old article about Catherine's philanthropic work. "Hey, champ." Hunter kneels down, ignoring the creases that will form in his Italian trousers. "It's okay, Daddy's here." Aiden throws himself into his father's arms, his small body trembling. Hunter holds him, feeling the fine fabric of his Loro Piana shirt dampen with his son's tears. In these moments, all the wealth in the world feels insignificant against the impossibility of healing his boy's pain. Back in the boardroom, Edward watches the scene through the bulletproof glass, his fingers drumming on the leather folder. His rose gold Rolex Daytona catches the light as he types a message on his iPhone. He's more vulnerable than ever. Time to act. The message is received by Samantha, who reads it discreetly while arranging Baccarat crystal in the Maxwell mansion's dining room. Her youthful, beautiful face hides the inner conflict consuming her. Edward promised her a future, a life of luxury she could never have dreamed of growing up in the south side of Chicago. But the cost of that promise is starting to weigh on her conscience. On the building's rooftop, the helipad awaits the moment Hunter will leave for home in his customized Bell 429 helicopter. The sun has fully set, and Chicago's lights glitter like jewels on black velvet. From this privileged vantage point, the city looks like a chessboard, where every move could mean the difference between victory and ruin. As Hunter prepares Aidan for the trip home, Edward remains in the office, staring at the city through the bulletproof windows. His reflection overlaps with the city lights, and for a moment he allows himself to envision his name on the CEO's golden desk plaque. With a cold smile, he pulls a tiny vial from his pocket, a gift from a contact in the pharmaceutical industry. "Soon, little brother," he murmurs to himself. "Soon, all of this will be mine by right." The day ends as it began, with Hunter gazing out over the city. But now, from the balcony of his $45 million Gold Coast mansion, with Aidan asleep in his arms, he feels the weight of an empire he must protect and a son he must heal. Unbeknownst to him, forces within his own home are already moving to destroy everything he has built. Tomorrow will bring another day of meetings, billion-dollar decisions, and immense responsibilities. But for now, Hunter Maxwell, one of the most powerful men in Chicago, is just a father holding his son, both prisoners of a silence no fortune can break. Rain pounds against the windows of the Waldorf Astoria, Chicago, where Edward Maxwell occupies the presidential suite. Seated in an Italian velvet armchair, he gazes at the city through the fogged glass, a glass of Macallan 1926 in hand. At the suite's private bar, Samantha nervously pours herself a glass of Dom Perignon champagne. "Do you understand what's at stake here?" Edward asks, his voice smooth as silk. "Hunter Enterprises is worth over $50 billion. My father," he runs a finger along the rim of his glass, "made a mistake choosing Hunter, but we can correct it." Samantha adjusts the Valentino dress, a recent gift from Edward. Her humble beginnings in Chicago's South Side feel increasingly distant. "What exactly do you want me to do?" Edward rises, walking to a titanium Rimowa briefcase on the Eames table. From within, he produces a crystalline vial. It's a special compound, developed in our pharmaceutical labs in Switzerland. Undetectable in standard tests, 2 drops a day in his water or food will suffice. The next day, at Hunter Enterprises headquarters, an extraordinary board meeting takes place on the 51st floor. Hunter chairs the session, presenting the figures for a new solar energy project. The company had just acquired a green tech startup for $2.3 billion, leaving shareholders uneasy. "Gentlemen," Hunter gestures to the 3-dimensional holograms hovering over the conference table, "our clean energy division already accounts for 30% of revenue. With the acquisition of Green Tech Solutions, we project doubling that figure within 18 months. Edward watches his brother with a restrained smile. Over the past weeks, Samantha has followed his instructions to the letter. The first signs are already visible. Hunter appears paler. His hands tremble slightly as he handles documents. At the Maxwell mansion, Samantha moves with growing confidence through the corridors adorned with Persian tapestries and European antiques. Her daily routine now includes a macabre ritual, 2 drops of the crystalline liquid in Hunter's morning smoothie, made with organic ingredients imported from New Zealand. The empire built by the Maxwell family extends far beyond energy and technology. At the port of Chicago, cargo ships unload containers bearing the company's logo. On the stock exchange, Hunter Enterprises shares influence the entire market. The business empire includes a network of 6-star hotels, a Tuscan vineyard, and major stakes in biotech firms. On a particularly cold afternoon, Edward meets Samantha at Lakeshore Park. She wears a Fendi coat and Louboutin heels. More gifts from him. "It's working," she whispers, glancing nervously around. "He barely managed to finish the board meeting today." Edward pulls her close, his lips brushing her ear. "You'll be rewarded beyond your wildest dreams. Once I take control, you'll have everything you've ever wanted." His fingers toy with a Cartier necklace around her neck, another invisible chain binding her to him. At the mansion, Hunter battles an inexplicable fatigue. His private doctors, the best money can buy, are baffled. Tests conducted at private clinics in Switzerland and the US reveal nothing conclusive. In his apartment-sized closet, Keaton and Brioni's suits begin to hang loose. Aidan watches his father's changes with frightened eyes. During dinner, served on Meissen porcelain atop a Ligne Rosé table, He notices how his father barely touches his food. The boy's silence now carries not just the pain of losing his mother, but also the fear of losing his father. The situation reaches a critical point during a gala at the Art Institute of Chicago. Wearing a Tom Ford tuxedo, Hunter stumbles during his speech about the museum's new wing funded by the Family Foundation. Camera flashes capture his fall, and the next day's headlines are ruthless. Maxwell Empire at risk? CEO shows signs of weakness. Edward orchestrates an emergency board meeting. In his penthouse at the Trump International Hotel and Tower, he hosts key shareholders. Rare wines flow as he subtly sows doubt about his brother's ability to lead the conglomerate. We need to consider the company's future, he argues, pouring Chateau Lafite Rothschild 1869 into Zalto glasses. Hunter is clearly indisposed. As shareholders, we have a duty to protect our investments. At the Maxwell mansion, the situation rapidly deteriorates. Hunter can barely climb the Carrara marble stairs. His personal chef, trained at Le Cordon Bleu, prepares special meals that go untouched. The closet now houses a small pharmacy of imported medications, all ineffective. It is at this moment that Florence Bennett enters the picture. Recommended by Chicago's most exclusive clinic, she arrives one October morning, her Audi A8 pulling up to the mansion's circular driveway. Unlike the ostentatious environment around her, Florence exudes an elegant simplicity. Her experience as a nurse in elite hospitals in Switzerland and the US has prepared her to care for VIP patients, but nothing could prepare her for the Maxwells. Miss Bennett, Hunter greets her in his private office, where an original Van Gogh painting silently witnesses their conversation. I appreciate your discretion in this matter. I understand your last position was with the Saudi royal family. Florence nods, her green eyes clinically assessing Hunter's condition. Beneath the impeccable Xenia suit, she notices the signs of accelerated physical deterioration. Mr. Maxwell, my priority is your well-being. And, she hesitates for a moment, if I may, I'm also concerned about your son. The mention of Aidan makes Hunter straighten in his Italian leather chair. What do you mean? Childhood trauma is my secondary specialty. Perhaps I can help on both fronts. In the mansion's garden, designed by an award-winning French landscaper, Aidan plays alone near the marble fountain. Florence watches him through the window of the wellness suite, a state-of-the-art medical facility dedicated to Hunter's care. Samantha, arranging Lalique crystal on a nearby shelf, notices how Florence's gaze differs from that of the other professionals who have passed through the mansion. There's something about her presence that unsettles Samantha, an intuition sharp enough to threaten everything. That night in his apartment at the Four Seasons private residences, Edward receives a worried message from Samantha. The nurse. She asks too many questions. She's always watching. Edward, I don't know if I can keep doing this. Edward types his response on his gold iPhone. Don't you dare back out now, we're too close. Besides, he smirks to himself, I have special plans for our new guest. At the mansion, Florence methodically organizes her care plan. She notices strange patterns. Hunter's symptoms seem to worsen after meals, particularly those prepared under Samantha's supervision. Using her iPad Pro, she begins documenting her observations, piecing together a puzzle no one else seems to see. Meanwhile, something unexpected happens. Aidan, who has not connected with anyone besides his father since his mother's death, begins gravitating toward Florence. During Hunter's physical therapy sessions in the mansion's private gym, the boy stays nearby, silently watching her care for his father. One afternoon, while Hunter rests in his master bedroom, a 300-square-meter suite overlooking Lake Michigan, Florence finds Aidan in the library. The boy is seated on the Aubusson rug surrounded by toy cars. For the first time in 2 years, he allows someone other than his father to sit beside him. Edward, monitoring the situation through Samantha, realizes he must accelerate his plan. In his penthouse, he opens a Döttling safe and removes a second vial. It's time to increase the dose, he instructs Samantha over the phone. And as for the nurse, keep her busy, we can't let her suspect anything. What Edward doesn't know is that Florence has already begun connecting the dots. In her room in the staff wing, a space rivaling luxury hotel suites, she reviews her notes. Over the past few days, she has discreetly collected samples of Hunter's food, storing them in sterilized vials imported from Germany. The tension in the Maxwell mansion increases with each passing day. Hunter, now visibly weakened, continues to run his empire from his home office, connected to the world through cutting-edge technology. Florence remains vigilant, dividing her attention between medical care and the silent investigation she conducts. Samantha, torn between her conscience and Edward's promises, begins making small mistakes. Florence notices how nervous she seems during meals, how her hands tremble as she pours tea into Wedgwood china. At Hunter Enterprises, Edward prepares for the final blow. The documents are ready. As soon as Hunter is deemed incapacitated, Edward will assume full control. Chicago's most expensive lawyers have already been paid to ensure a seamless transition. What no one realizes is that Aidan, in his silence, observes everything. His eyes record every detail, every suspicious move, and in Florence he has found not only a caregiver for his father, but perhaps the only person capable of stopping the looming tragedy. Autumn in Chicago paints the Maxwell Mansion's gardens in shades of amber and red. In the music room, where a Steinway & Sons grand piano sits silently, Florence finds Aidan seated at the instrument, his small fingers lightly touching the ivory keys. She watches as the boy seems different, more present, more aware, since he began spending time with her. "Did your mother play?" Florence asks softly, sitting beside him on the Italian velvet bench. Aidan nods, his eyes fixed on the keys. Florence notices a subtle change in his expression. It's not just sadness, but something more. Concern. Fear. In recent days, she's observed how the boy follows her with his eyes, how he seems to want to communicate something that goes beyond his self-imposed silence. Upstairs in the master suite, Hunter battles another wave of nausea. His reflection in the Venetian mirror reveals a transformed man, hollow eyes, pale skin, the Armani suit hanging loosely on his increasingly fragile frame. Florence administers his medications with clinical precision, but her mind works on another level. The samples she discreetly collected have been sent to a specialized laboratory in Zurich under strict confidentiality. Edward increases his visits to the mansion, always bringing lavish gifts for Aidan. Miniature cars from his private collection, rare video games, imported toys from Japan. His displays of uncle-nephew affection are impeccably staged, but there's something predatory in his gaze that Florence cannot ignore. One particularly tense afternoon, Samantha serves tea in the library. The Hermes porcelain trembles slightly in her hands as she adds what she believes to be another dose of poison to Hunter's cup. What she doesn't notice is Aidan, hidden behind a Restoration Hardware bookshelf, watching everything with his sharp eyes. The boy clutches his stiff teddy bear, the last gift from his mother, as he witnesses the crime unfolding before him. His silence, once a prison of pain, now becomes a chamber of deadly secrets. That evening, something changes. During dinner, served on fine Bernadotte porcelain, Aidan deliberately knocks over his baccarat crystal glass. The liquid spreads across the Persian rug, creating a distraction that prevents his father from drinking the poisoned wine. Florence catches the boy's intense gaze, a silent plea in his eyes. After dinner in the privacy of Aidan's bedroom, a space rivaling children's design showrooms in Milan, Florence tries to forge a deeper connection. "You're trying to tell me something, aren't you?" she asks, sitting on a miniature Charles Eames chair next to the boy's king-size bed. Aidan hesitates, his small hands nervously gripping the fret duvet. Then, in a surprising move, he picks up his iPad Pro and opens a drawing app. With quick, precise strokes, he sketches a cup, a mysterious bottle, and his Uncle Edward's face. Florence feels her heart race. The puzzle pieces begin falling into place. Preliminary results from the Swiss lab had already indicated the presence of suspicious substances in the samples, but now she has confirmation of what she suspected. Meanwhile, in the executive offices of Hunter Enterprises, Edward finalizes preparations for his ultimate move. In a private meeting with the board, held in the VIP room of the Peninsula Chicago, he presents carefully forged medical documents. Hunter's condition is deteriorating rapidly, he argues, pouring Krug Clos d'Ambonnet 1998 for the attendees. As family, it's my duty to protect not only the company's interests, but also my nephew's. We must act before it's too late. The next day, Florence receives an encrypted email from the Swiss lab. The full analysis reveals a lethal cocktail of substances, all developed in laboratories controlled by Hunter Enterprises' pharmaceutical division. Her heart races as she comprehends the scope of the conspiracy. In her apartment-sized closet, Samantha examines her growing collection of designer clothes and accessories. Gifts from Edward, Chanel, Gucci, Prada, each piece a reminder of the price of her complicity. In the beveled crystal mirror, she barely recognizes the woman she's become. Edward's voice presses her over the phone. "It's time for the grand finale, darling. Tomorrow during breakfast, use the special vial, the one that will simulate a heart attack. Everything is prepared, the doctors, the documents, the press. It will be quick and clean." What Edward doesn't realize is that his conversation echoes through the Sonance sound system embedded in the mansion's walls. In the second-floor hallway, Aidan stands frozen, his small body trembling as he hears the plans to murder his father. That night, something extraordinary happens. For the first time in 2 years, Aidan breaks his silence, not with words, but with a piercing scream that echoes through the mansion as he sees Samantha approaching his father's room with a tea tray. Florence, monitoring Hunter's vitals through state-of-the-art medical equipment, rushes at the sound of the scream. She finds Aidan gripping the tray, spilling the delicate porcelain onto the Tibetan rug. "Aidan!" Samantha exclaims, her face a mask of feigned concern. "What's gotten into you?" But the boy doesn't back down. With a courage born of desperation, he points to the shattered cup and then to Samantha, his hands trembling but his eyes resolute. Florence takes in the scene with crystal clarity, the guilt on Samantha's face, the fear in Aidan's eyes, the evidence scattered across the $200,000 rug. In that moment, the power dynamics within the Maxwell mansion begin to shift dramatically. Armed with the lab results and Aidan's silent confirmation, Florence initiates her own covert operation. She discreetly installs ultra-sophisticated surveillance cameras in strategic locations throughout the mansion, connected to a parallel security system only she can access. Sensing something is amiss, Edward increases the pressure on Samantha. In a clandestine meeting in the mansion's winter garden, an enclosed space of tempered glass and stainless steel, he urges her, "I don't care how you do it, but it has to be tomorrow. The documents are with the lawyers, the press is ready. We can't miss this window of opportunity." Samantha, her resolve faltering under the weight of her guilt, looks at the Bulgari ring on her finger, another gift from Edward. What if something goes wrong?" Edward's smile is icy. "Darling, you're already too deep in this to start asking questions now. Or do you think anyone would believe the word of a mere servant against the Maxwell family?" What they don't realize is that every word is being recorded by Florence's devices. In her room, she reviews the recordings on her ultra-thin laptop, while Aidan, sitting beside her, confirms with gestures what the footage reveals. The transformation within the family reaches its peak when Hunter, despite his frailty, notices the change in his son's behavior. During a moment of lucidity, while resting on his king-size bed covered in fret linens, he observes how Aidan refuses to eat or drink anything brought by Samantha, and how he silently communicates with Florence through glances and gestures. "Is there something you two aren't telling me?" Hunter asks, his voice weak but still carrying the authority of a billionaire CEO. Florence exchanges a meaningful glance with Aidan. The moment to reveal everything is near, but they must tread carefully. Edward has powerful connections, and one wrong move could be fatal. In his penthouse at the Trump International Hotel and Tower, Edward puts the final touches on his plan. The power transfer documents are ready. The doctors have been paid to confirm the natural cause of death, and press releases about the tragic loss of a visionary leader are already prepared. What he doesn't know is that Florence has plans of her own. In her Bottega Veneta bag, she carries a syringe with an antidote specially developed by the Swiss laboratory, a precaution in case Edward tries to execute his final blow before she can expose him. The tension at the mansion reaches unbearable levels. Every meal becomes a deadly chess match, every interaction a dance on the edge of a blade. Aidan stays close to his father, his eyes constantly alert, while Florence watches every move Samantha makes and every visit Edward pays. The stage is set for the final confrontation. Edward has scheduled an extraordinary board meeting for the next morning at the Peninsula, Chicago. The plan is simple. Hunter will not make it to the meeting alive, and by the end of the day, the Maxwell empire will have a new leader. But in the dead of night, while the mansion sleeps under the protection of its state-of-the-art security system, Florence makes her move. With Aidan by her side, she begins compiling all the evidence, the recordings, the lab results, the records of suspicious transactions she managed to trace. Dawn will bring more than just a new day. It will bring the moment of truth for the Maxwell family. At the center of it all, a boy who found his voice through silence, a nurse turned detective, and an empire teetering on the brink of collapse. Deep in the night, as she organizes the evidence on her MacBook Pro, Florence receives an urgent notification from the Swiss laboratory. New tests reveal something even more disturbing. The poison used on Hunter is a modified version of an experimental compound secretly developed in Hunter Enterprises' own labs. A project discontinued 3 years ago for being deemed too dangerous. A project that had been under Edward's direct supervision. In her suite's walk-in closet, Samantha discovers a new gift. A Louis Vuitton suitcase containing $500,000 in cash and a first-class ticket to the Maldives. Alongside it, a handwritten note on Montblanc stationery, "For after the job is done, don't disappoint me. E." Her hands tremble as she touches the money, each bill a stark reminder of how far she has strayed from her principles. In Aiden's room, Florence has installed a monitoring system directly connected to Hunter's vitals. The boy refuses to sleep, his eyes fixed on the screens showing his father's heartbeat. In his hands, he clutches a Smithson leather-bound photo album filled with memories of happier times. His mother, his father, a family whole before greed began to tear it apart. At his penthouse, Edward makes one last call to his contact in the pharmaceutical division. "I need you to erase all records of Project Chimera," he orders, referring to the code name for the experimental poison, "and make sure no one from the original research team can be found." What Edward doesn't know is that Florence has already backed up all files related to the project. Her connections with the Swiss clinic have given her access to an international network of toxicology experts who are now racing against time to develop a more effective antidote. In the mansion's library, Aiden finds something that catches his attention. An old Montblanc journal belonging to his mother, hidden among rare first editions. In its final pages, Catherine had written about her suspicions regarding Edward, how he seemed obsessively fixated on the inheritance, how small incidents now take on a darker meaning. When Florence sees Aiden with the journal, she realizes they have another crucial piece of the puzzle. Catherine hadn't simply died from illness. She had been starting to uncover something about Edward. Her sudden death, attributed to the natural progression of her condition, now seems suspiciously convenient. In the mansion's security system, Florence notices something strange. Edward used his electronic key to enter the property at 3 a.m. The cameras show him driving his Bentley Continental GT into the underground garage, where he stays for nearly an hour before leaving. In the garage, hidden behind a Rolls-Royce Phantom, Florence finds an abandoned Hermes folder. Inside are documents that reveal something even more sinister. Edward doesn't just plan to take control of the company, he intends to sell entire divisions to a Chinese conglomerate, dismantling the empire his father built. The plan is more elaborate than anyone could have imagined. Hunter's death would only be the beginning. With control of the company, Edward could execute a series of strategic sales that would make him one of the richest men in the world, even if it meant destroying the Maxwell family legacy. In his innocent yet perceptive way, Aiden begins drawing on his iPad Pro. His increasingly detailed sketches reveal not just the current poisoning, but also small details he observed over the past 2 years. Scenes that, seen individually, seemed innocent, but together tell a story of manipulation and betrayal that began long before his mother's illness. Florence realizes they are not just dealing with a crime in progress, they are uncovering a conspiracy spanning years. Edward is not merely a jealous brother, but a calculating sociopath who has meticulously planned the destruction of his own family. The security cameras capture Samantha, making a desperate phone call on her iPhone. "I can't do this, Edward." The boy, he knows. He saw everything. Edward's response is cold and cutting. "You don't have a choice. Finish what you started, or you'll end up as dead as my brother will be tomorrow." In the master suite, Hunter has a moment of clarity. Looking at Florence and Aiden, he murmurs, "Catherine, she tried to warn me. About Edward, about the company, but I didn't want to see." His words are interrupted by another wave of pain, his fingers clutching the Patek Philippe his father gave him, the same watch Edward had coveted for years. Time is running out. In just a few hours, the board will convene at the Peninsula Chicago. Edward already has the documents prepared. The doctors bribed, the headline story ready. All he needs is one final dose of poison, One last cup of tea served by Samantha, and the Maxwell empire will change hands forever. Florence knows they must act before dawn. With the evidence gathered and the antidote in hand, she faces a critical choice: confront Edward directly or save Hunter first. Every minute is precious. Every decision could mean the difference between life and death. In the mansion's garage, the armored Maybach that will take Hunter to the board meeting is already prepared. The driver, one of Edward's trusted men, inspects the vehicle's interior. What he doesn't know is that Aidan, in his silent exploration of the mansion, found a spare key to the car hidden in his uncle's office. The night presses on, each tick of the Cartier and Patek Philippe clocks echoing through the mansion's halls like a countdown to the inevitable confrontation. Florence, Aidan, and a weakened Hunter are about to face the greatest battle of their lives, a battle that will decide not just the future of the Maxwell empire, but the survival of a family torn apart by ambition. At 3 a.m., the Audemars Piguet clock on the medical suite wall strikes as Florence administers the first dose of the experimental antidote to Hunter. Through the mansion's bulletproof windows, the lights of Chicago twinkle like distant stars, silent witnesses to a battle for survival. "We need to keep him stable until the antidote takes effect," Florence explains to Aidan, who refuses to leave his father's side. The boy holds Hunter's hand with a determination that belies his age, his eyes fixed on the state-of-the-art medical monitors tracking every heartbeat. In the mansion's main kitchen, Samantha nervously prepares the breakfast that is supposed to be Hunter's last. Her hands tremble as she handles the Wedgwood porcelain, each movement a battle between conscience and ambition. The final vial Edward gave her, a small crystal ampule containing a clear liquid, weighs in her pocket like lead. Florence has implemented a parallel security system in the mansion. Microscopic Leica cameras disguised as Ralph Lauren decor pieces monitor every move. A custom AI software developed for her by a Zurich-based security expert analyzes behavioral patterns and detects anomalies. Hunter drifts between consciousness and delirium. In his lucid moments, he observes the dynamic between Florence and Aidan with renewed clarity. There's something in the way his son communicates silently with the nurse that reminds him of Catherine. The same instinctive connection, the same mutual understanding without words. "Florence," he calls, his voice still weak but steadier than in recent days. "You need to understand something about the company, about Edward." Florence moves closer to the hospital bed, camouflaged among Fendi furnishings, her iPad Pro ready to record every word. Hunter begins to reveal details about the Maxwell empire that even the longest-standing board members don't know. He speaks of secret accounts in the Cayman Islands, confidential research projects, and a web of influence spanning continents. In his room, Aidan finds the courage to do something he hasn't done since his mother's death. He opens the custom Yamaha digital piano, a birthday gift that had remained untouched for 2 years, and begins to play. The notes of Claire de Lune float through the mansion's halls, a melody his mother used to play every night before bed. Hearing the music, Florence feels tears welling in her eyes. It's not just the perfect notes from a 5-year-old's fingers, but the meaning behind them. Aidan is finally finding his voice, even if not through words yet. Florence's investigation takes on a new dimension when she discovers hidden in a false bottom of Catherine's Cartier desk drawer an encrypted Tiffany-encumbered USB drive. With the help of digital security experts in Tel Aviv, she begins to unlock its contents. Files detailing a pattern of Edward's suspicious behavior dating back years before Catherine's death. At his penthouse in the Trump International Hotel and Tower, Edward receives a disturbing call. His contacts at the Swiss laboratory inform him that someone is investigating Project Chimera. Worse still, an antidote is being developed. His face contorts in fury as he hurls his glass of Macallan 1926 against the wall, the $75,000 amber liquid dripping down the imported Italian wallpaper. Back at the mansion, Florence sets up a secret video conference with the Swiss laboratory using an encrypted military-grade communication system. The scientists confirm the antidote is working, but Hunter will need at least 48 hours to fully recover, time they don't have. Aidan, ever watchful and perceptive, begins to communicate in new ways. Using his iPad Pro, he creates elaborate presentations combining photos, drawings, and snippets of conversations he overheard. His young yet remarkably insightful mind connects dots that even the adults around him fail to see. One afternoon, as Florence analyzes financial documents on her secure laptop, Aidan brings her something surprising, a Smithson photo album that belonged to his mother. Among the pages, he finds encoded notes Catherine had written about Edward's suspicious activities. The boy points to specific dates, key events, and mysterious meetings, all documented with the precision of someone who knew they were uncovering something dangerous. Hunter, more lucid thanks to the antidote, begins actively participating in the investigation. From his bed, he guides Florence through the company's complex financial system, revealing layers of transactions and agreements that could expose Edward's manipulations. His voice, still weak but resolute, trembles with emotion as he realizes how blind he had been to his brother's machinations. The relationship between Florence, Hunter, and Aidan deepens into something far more meaningful than a professional arrangement. During long nights of vigilance, Florence shares stories of her childhood in Switzerland, about losing her father at a young age and finding strength to move forward. Though still silent, Aidan responds with hugs and smiles, small miracles that bring light to their darkest moments. Samantha, consumed by guilt, starts leaving deliberate clues. An empty vial here, a misplaced note there, small slips that Florence meticulously catalogues. Samantha's conscience wages an increasingly losing battle against Edward's promises and the fear of the consequences. In a particularly touching moment, Aidan leads Florence to his mother's closet, a sanctuary of memories preserved exactly as Catherine left it. Among Chanel dresses and Hermes bags, the boy finds a sealed letter addressed to Hunter, dated a week before Catherine's death. Florence watches, moved, as Aidan hands the letter to his father with trembling hands. The letter's contents change everything. Catherine hadn't merely suspected Edward's actions, she had proof. Proof she hid in a secret vault at the family bank in Switzerland, protected by a password only her son would know. The exact date and time of Aidan's first piano recital. Hunter's recovery is slow, but his mind grows sharper by the day. During physical therapy sessions in the mansion's private gym, he and Florence develop a coded system of communication, allowing them to share critical information even under constant surveillance. The Maxwell empire begins to feel the strain of its CEO's prolonged absence. Stock prices fluctuate, business partners grow uneasy, and the media speculates wildly. Edward seizes every opportunity to sow doubt about his brother's ability to lead, but Florence works tirelessly behind the scenes, leveraging her connections in the international medical community to protect Hunter's reputation. Aidan astonishes everyone when, during a rainy afternoon, he sits at the piano and begins playing an original composition. The notes tell a story of loss, love, and hope. Florence and Hunter watch in awe as the boy, who hasn't spoken a word in 2 years, expresses himself through music with eloquence that transcends language. The Maxwell mansion, with its halls adorned with contemporary art and European antiques, becomes a silent battlefield. Every luxury object hides a camera, every piece of artwork conceals a microphone, every room holds secrets that could either destroy or save the family. Florence coordinates an international network of specialists, toxicologists in Switzerland, financial investigators in London, and security experts in Israel. Every piece of evidence is catalogued and stored on secure servers worldwide, protected by military-grade encryption protocols. Hunter, between treatment sessions, records detailed testimonies on his secure iPhone. He knows that every word may be his last chance to expose the truth. Florence guards these recordings as if they were more valuable than the Graf diamonds adorning Chicago's socialites. Aidan's emotional development accelerates daily. His drawings become more intricate, his melodies more elaborate. Through art and music, he processes the trauma of the past years and finds the strength to face what lies ahead. Florence notices how he smiles more often now, how his eyes shine with a renewed sense of purpose. As the final confrontation draws near, the Maxwell mansion transforms. Security systems are upgraded, escape routes are planned, contingencies are established. Florence turns the medical suite into a high-tech command center, with monitors displaying every angle of the property and communication systems linked to authorities across 3 continents. On one particularly significant evening, as snow gently falls over Chicago, Aidan does something extraordinary. He picks up his Mont Blanc notebook and writes his first word in 2 years: family. Florence and Hunter watch, moved, as the boy draws a small heart next to the word. The secret investigation reaches its peak when Florence discovers through encrypted bank records that Edward is not acting alone. There is an international consortium interested in dismantling the Maxwell empire, and Edward is merely a pawn in a much larger game. Time is running out. Edward has scheduled an extraordinary board meeting for the following morning at the Peninsula Chicago. Florence knows he plans to use this meeting to execute his final coup. With Hunter stronger but still not fully recovered, they must decide: confront Edward publicly or continue working in the shadows. The answer comes unexpectedly. During dinner, served on fine Limoges porcelain, Aidan begins playing a new melody on the piano. Florence recognizes the pattern. It's a musical transcription of Morse code. The boy is sending a message, note by note, and his father, trained in the Navy, is the only one who can decipher it. The message is clear: tomorrow, all together. As the night progresses, the Maxwell mansion prepares for its most decisive day. In the library, Florence organizes a final meeting with her international team via an ultra-secure video conference. The Sony 8K monitors display faces of specialists across time zones: the Swiss toxicologist with new analyses of the antidote, the financial investigator in London with updates on Edward's offshore accounts, the security expert in Tel Aviv with the latest protection protocols. Hunter, now stronger but still relying on a Hermes cane to walk, actively participates in the meeting. His sharp CEO mind processes every detail, every variable, and every potential scenario for the next day. On his wrist, the Patek Philippe marks the hours remaining until the final confrontation. In the music room, Aidan continues his extraordinary transformation. His small hands dance across the piano keys, creating increasingly complex melodies. Florence notices how each composition tells a story: notes of hope interwoven with moments of tension, chords of courage emerging from melancholy passages. Samantha, watching from the shadows, makes her final decision. In her room, she retrieves a Hermes folder from the wall safe, containing all records of her communications with Edward. Her hands tremble as she types a message on her iPhone. "It's over, Edward. I can't be part of this anymore." Edward's response is immediate and threatening. "You have no choice. Remember who you were before me and who you can become again." Attached to the message is an old photo of Samantha at her previous job as a waitress in a roadside diner. Florence, monitoring communications through her parallel system, intercepts the exchange. Another piece of the puzzle falls into place, another damning piece of evidence against Edward. In the master suite, Hunter shares a moment of deep reflection with Aidan. Sitting together in a Charles Eames chair, father and son flip through an Asprey photo album. Each page is a window to the past. Catherine smiling in front of the Louvre, family vacations in the Maldives, Aidan's first piano recital. "Your mother would be so proud of you," Hunter whispers, his voice thick with emotion. Aidan responds in the only way he knows how now, by walking to the piano and playing his mother's favorite song, Clair de Lune, but this time with variations that speak of hope and renewal. Florence, watching the scene, feels her heart tighten. In just a few weeks, this family, torn apart by tragedy, has found a path to healing, not through the wealth that surrounds them, but through love, courage, and truth. As the night deepens, each member of this unlikely alliance prepares in their own way for the day ahead. Hunter reviews critical company documents in his office, surrounded by priceless works of art that now feel insignificant compared to the true treasure he's rediscovered: the love of his son. Before bed, Aidan does something surprising. He picks up his iPad Pro and begins recording a video message. Though he still doesn't speak, he uses a combination of sign language Florence taught him and his music to create a powerful testimony of everything he has witnessed. Florence, in her room, reviews the collected material one last time. The evidence is meticulously organized on encrypted drives, backups are sent to secure servers across 3 continents, and a direct line to authorities is established for the right moment. The Maxwell mansion, with all its luxury and opulence, has never felt so alive, so full of purpose. Every precious object now bears witness to a story of redemption. Every sumptuous room holds memories of rebirth. When the Cartier clock in the library strikes midnight, 3 hearts beat in unison, united by a common purpose. Florence, Hunter, and Aidan, transformed by extraordinary circumstances from strangers into family, share one final moment of quiet before the storm ahead. Tomorrow, at the Peninsula Chicago, Much more than the fate of the Maxwell empire will be decided. It will be a day of truths revealed, long overdue justice, and silenced voices finally being heard. And at the center of it all, a boy who found his voice through music, a father who rediscovered his strength through love, and a woman whose compassion became the catalyst for an entire family's healing. Meanwhile, at St. Michael's Chapel, with its centuries-old stained glass and Gothic architecture, Chicago's high society gathers. A mahogany casket, adorned with rare orchids imported from Thailand, rests majestically before the altar. Edward Maxwell, impeccable in a black Tom Ford suit, receives condolences with a studied expression of solemnity. Florence, seated in the front pew with Aidan clinging to her, watches every movement with eagle eyes. Her black Chanel dress conceals an ultra-sensitive microphone connected to a team of federal agents, strategically positioned around the chapel. On her wrist, a custom Apple Watch by the security team monitors Hunter's vital signs inside the coffin. Edward's plan had partially succeeded. The night before, Hunter had been given a dose of the paralytic, but not before Florence administered the antidote and a cocktail of protective medications. Now, within the silk-lined coffin, Hunter Maxwell is alive, conscious, and waiting for the right moment. The bishop, adorned in gold-threaded vestments, begins the ceremony. His deep voice echoes through the chapel as he speaks of eternal life and redemption. In the front row, Hunter Enterprises board members exchange uneasy glances. The will was to be read immediately after the funeral, and Edward had ensured each of them would be handsomely rewarded for their support. Samantha, sitting discreetly at the back of the chapel, nervously clutches her Bottega Veneta bag. Inside it, a USB drive contains all the evidence of her involvement in the conspiracy, along with detailed records of Edward's manipulations. Her conscience had finally triumphed over ambition. The moment of truth approaches when the bishop announces it is time to seal the coffin for its transport to the cemetery. Edward rises, adjusting his Hermes tie, a barely perceptible smile playing on his lips. That's when Aidan, breaking 2 years of silence, shouts a single word that freezes everyone in place. "No!" The boy's voice, clear and strong, echoes through the centuries-old walls. "Daddy is alive! Uncle Edward tried to kill him!" Chaos erupts in the chapel. Edward tries to maintain his composure, but a flash of panic crosses his face. "The poor child is traumatized," he explains, his honeyed tone faltering. First his mother, now his father. But Aidan isn't finished. Like a dam finally breaking, the words pour out. "I saw everything. I saw Samantha putting poison in Daddy's food. I saw Uncle Edward promising her money. I heard them planning it all in the winter garden." Florence rises, her tablet displaying security footage that matches Aidan's account. On the high-definition screens, Edward and Samantha are clearly seen discussing the plan, the vial of poison passing between their hands. "This is absurd," Edward protests, but his voice falters as the sound of knocking comes from inside the coffin. The collective gasp is palpable as Hunter, pale but very much alive, pushes open the lid and sits up. "It's over, Edward," Hunter declares, his voice weak but resolute. "Catherine tried to warn me about you, but I didn't listen. Hayden saw everything. He's carried this burden alone for 2 years, protecting the truth until the right moment." Federal agents emerge from their disguises among the guests. Edward tries to run, but is tackled before he can reach the massive oak doors of the chapel. As titanium handcuffs click around his wrists, he shouts, "You don't understand. The company was always meant to be mine. Father made a mistake." Samantha, trembling, stands up. "I'll confess everything," she announces, tears streaming down her face. "Edward planned this for years. It started with small doses of poison in Catherine's food, so subtle it seemed like symptoms of her illness. When she began to suspect, he increased the dosage. The revelation hits Hunter like a thunderbolt. Catherine. His voice breaks as the terrible truth dawns. "You killed her too." Edward's smile is now twisted, almost deranged. "She was asking too many questions, meddling where she shouldn't. It's a pity Aidan inherited her inconvenient curiosity." Florence quickly covers Aidan's ears, but it's too late. The boy has understood everything. His next words surprise everyone with their maturity. "Mommy knew. That's why she taught me Morse code through the piano. She knew I would need to tell the truth one day." The guests, Chicago's elite, watch in stunned silence as Edward Maxwell's true nature is exposed. Executives in Brioni suits and socialites in Valentino gowns witness the downfall of one of the city's most powerful families. Detectives raid Edward's private office at the Hunter Enterprises Tower. Hidden in safes behind Picasso paintings, they find damning evidence. Records of suspicious transactions, poison formulas, forged documents, and a detailed plan to dismantle the Maxwell empire and sell it off in pieces. Back at the chapel, as Edward is led away by police, Aidan runs into his father's arms. Hunter, still weak but determined, holds his son with all the strength he has. Florence watches the scene with tears in her eyes, knowing her role in this story went far beyond professional duty. "How did you know?" Edward asks Florence as he is escorted out. "How did you figure it all out?" Florence smiles serenely. "You forgot the most important lesson about wealth, Edward. True power isn't in money, it's in human connections. You had everything, family, respect, privilege, but your greed blinded you to what truly mattered. The fallout is immediate and devastating. Shares of Hunter Enterprises plummet on global markets as the news spreads. Television networks interrupt regular programming to cover the scandal. The Maxwell empire, built over generations, faces its greatest crisis. But amid the ruins of the empire, something unbreakable has emerged. A family that found its voice, its strength, and its love through unimaginable trials. Florence, Hunter, and Aidan walk out of the chapel together, united by a bond no betrayal could ever destroy. Something extraordinary happens. Aidan, now free from the weight of silence, takes the initiative. Amid the crowd of reporters gathered outside the chapel, he sits at a Steinway grand piano. His small hands begin to play a melody that speaks of loss, betrayal, but also of hope and redemption. The music touches the souls of everyone present. Hardened executives, moments ago furiously arguing on their phones about plunging stock prices, stop to listen. Journalists lower their cameras, captivated by the beauty of the moment. Hunter, supported by Florence, walks toward the piano. For the first time in 2 years, he sees his son truly free. The notes flowing from Aidan's fingers are not just music. They are a declaration of love, a promise of healing, a testimony that even in the darkest hours, truth finds its way into the light. From the back seat of the police car, Edward watches the chapel where his ambition finally destroyed him. His empire of lies, built on betrayal and greed, collapses like a house of cards under the weight of the most powerful force of all, the love between a father and son. Samantha is taken away in another police car, but her fate will be different. Her confession and cooperation will earn her a lighter sentence. More importantly, she has finally found something Edward's money could never buy: redemption. Florence receives a call from the Swiss laboratory. The antidote worked perfectly, and with proper care, Hunter will make a full recovery. More importantly, the analysis confirmed the same poison in preserved samples from Catherine, providing the final piece of evidence to ensure Edward never sees freedom again. As they leave the chapel, reporters clamor for statements. High-end cameras capture the moment Hunter, Florence, and Aidan emerge together. The boy, once trapped in his world of silence, now speaks openly, his voice carrying a wisdom beyond his years. "Daddy," he says, adjusting his miniature Hermes tie to match his father's, "can we play piano together when we get home? I have a new song I want to show you." Hunter smiles, tears in his eyes. "Of course, champ. We have all the time in the world now." Florence watches the scene with a full heart. Her official work as a nurse is technically done, but something tells her that her connection with the Maxwells is just beginning. Back at the mansion, news of the scandal dominates every channel. The Maxwell empire wavers but does not fall, because in the end, what Edward never understood is that true wealth is not measured in dollars, stocks, or properties. It is measured in love, truth, and courage. Aidan sits at the piano, his small but confident hands poised over the keys. Hunter and Florence settle onto the sofa to listen. The melody that emerges is entirely new, not a song of mourning or fear, but a celebration of a new beginning. Outside, the Maxwell mansion's gardens remain immaculate. The artwork still hangs on the walls, and the luxury cars still shine in the garage. But inside, something fundamental has changed. The silence that had imprisoned this family for so long was broken, not by screams or accusations, but by the pure and true music of a heart that finally found its voice. In his cell at the federal prison, Edward receives the final news. The board voted unanimously to remove his name from the company and all family charitable institutions. His legacy will be erased, his ambition reduced to a stain on the Maxwell family history. But at the mansion, a new story begins. Hunter, still physically weak, feels stronger than ever. Florence, who came to heal a body, ended up helping to heal an entire family. And Aiden, the little warrior who bore the weight of the truth for so long, can finally just be what he is, a loved and protected child. The music continues to flow from the piano, filling every corner of the mansion with promises of brighter days ahead. The Maxwell empire will survive, not because of its material wealth, but because of the strength of bonds that no betrayal could ever break. And so, in the heart of Chicago, a family is reborn from the ashes of betrayal. The price of silence was steep, but the value of truth, love, and courage proved incalculable. The Maxwell legacy will no longer be measured in billions of dollars, but in the strength of a boy who found his voice when it mattered most, a father who learned to listen to the silence, and a woman who proved that sometimes guardian angels come disguised as nurses. In the hours following the chapel confrontation, Chicago buzzes with the news. At the Peninsula Hotel, where the Hunter Enterprises board convenes for an emergency session, executives in Savile Row suits furiously debate the company's future. Bloomberg screens on the walls show stock prices fluctuating wildly as analysts worldwide try to predict the scandal's fallout. At the Chicago Police Department, Edward faces his first interrogation. Sitting in a stark room that contrasts dramatically with his lavish lifestyle, he maintains his arrogance, even when confronted with irrefutable evidence. Detectives present bank records, encrypted emails, and audio recordings, a web of proof meticulously constructed by Florence and her team. "You don't understand," Edward insists, his Rolex Daytona glinting under the fluorescent lights. "Everything I did was for the good of the company. Hunter is too weak to lead the empire our father built." Meanwhile, at the Maxwell mansion, a team of doctors from the Mayo Clinic conducts a thorough examination of Hunter. The antidote worked, but years of exposure to the poison have left scars requiring prolonged treatment. Florence oversees every test, ensuring no detail is overlooked. In the quiet of the mansion, Florence, Hunter, and Aiden sit together, their bond now unbreakable. As the piano plays on, it carries a melody of redemption, healing, and a family stronger than ever before. Aiden, now that he has found his voice, cannot stop talking. It's as if the words held back for 2 years are all rushing out at once. He tells Florence about all the times he tried to warn his father through music, how he observed Samantha from hidden corners, and the constant fear of losing another parent as he lost his mother. At Edward's office in the Hunter Enterprises tower, federal investigators uncover a hidden safe behind an original Monet. Inside, along with incriminating documents, they find a diary belonging to Catherine. The final pages reveal she was on the verge of exposing Edward, having uncovered his financial manipulations and his plan to take over the company. "She was smarter than I gave her credit for," Edward admits during interrogation, a cold smile on his face. "I realized I had to act when I found her in my office late one night, photographing documents with her iPhone. The poison was experimental, still in testing. She was, let's say, my first test subject." The confession is recorded, and when Hunter hears it later, something inside him breaks and rebuilds. In his apartment-sized closet, he finds a Valentino dress Catherine wore to her last charity gala. Her perfume still lingers faintly, like a ghost of everything Edward stole from them. In the mansion's library, Aiden shows Florence his secret observation spot, a niche between the restoration hardware bookshelves where he could see and hear everything unnoticed. From there, he witnessed countless conversations between Edward and Samantha, recording every detail in his young but astute mind. "I knew I had to wait for the right moment," he explains, playing with a miniature Lamborghini car. "Mommy always said the truth has its own timing." At the Bank of America Tower, the legal department of Hunter Enterprises works frantically to contain the damage. Statements are drafted, crisis management strategies are implemented, and a special task force is created to audit every decision Edward made over the past 5 years. In her cell at the police station, Samantha begins revealing even darker details of Edward's plan. She describes aborted assassination attempts, forged documents, and blackmailed executives. Her confession stretches for hours, every word recorded and added to the case against Edward. In the Maxwell Mansion's garden, where rare orchids bloom in climate-controlled greenhouses, Florence finds a moment of peace with Hunter and Aiden. The boy plays piano on a small digital keyboard brought outside, his notes blending with the sound of the Italian marble fountain. "How did you know I was alive in the coffin?" Hunter asks Florence, still processing the day's events. Florence smiles, showing her custom Apple Watch. "Swiss technology. Every one of your heartbeats was being monitored. But," she pauses, looking at Aiden, "it was your son who truly saved your life. He was our eyes and ears when no one else could see the truth." At the Four Seasons Hotel, where the international press has gathered for details on the story, rumors of a possible film or series adaptation begin circulating. Hollywood executives are already making calls, eager to secure the rights to a story that has it all: wealth, betrayal, love, and redemption. But at the Maxwell mansion, far from the media frenzy, a family begins its healing process. Hunter, watching Aiden play piano under the Chicago sunset, realizes that his empire nearly cost him the most precious thing in his life. The mansion's walls, adorned with artwork worth millions, have witnessed tragedy and betrayal, but now they bear witness to the rebirth of something far more valuable. Florence receives a call from her contacts in Switzerland. The complete analysis of the poison used on Catherine has been finalized. The report confirms not only her murder, but also provides evidence that Edward had been planning everything for years. The experimental poison was part of a secret project in the company's pharmaceutical division, developed under the guise of medical research. At the police station, Edward meets with his attorney, one of Chicago's most expensive. Even he, accustomed to defending tycoons and politicians, seems shaken by the extent of his client's crimes. The evidence is overwhelming, and no amount of money will buy Edward's freedom this time. Aiden, exhausted after a day of intense emotions, finally falls asleep in his king-size bed, surrounded by his miniature cars. Florence watches him sleep, marveling at the strength of this little warrior, who, in his silence, carried truths powerful enough to topple an empire. Hunter in his office begins planning for the future. Hunter Enterprises will survive, but it will be rebuilt on new foundations. Not an empire constructed on secrets and unchecked ambition, but a company that honors Catherine's true legacy: integrity, compassion, and justice. Night falls over Chicago, and the city lights shimmer like earthly stars. At the Maxwell mansion, the shadows of betrayal begin to fade, replaced by a purer, more truthful light. The price of silence was steep, but the value of truth proved incalculable. And so, as the city sleeps, three people united by fate and strengthened by adversity find peace in their victory. Hunter, the wounded but unbroken emperor; Aiden, the young prince who found his voice; and Florence, the guardian angel who helped the truth triumph. Together, they prove that true power doesn't lie in bank accounts or corporate empires, but in the courage to face darkness and emerge stronger on the other side. 6 months have passed since the dramatic confrontation at St. Michael's Chapel. Autumn has arrived in Chicago, painting the gardens of the Maxwell mansion in golden hues. In the grand living room, where a Steinway & Sons piano now holds a place of honor, Aiden practices his scales while Florence organizes documents on her iPad Pro. Edward Maxwell's trial has become one of the most notorious cases in Chicago's recent history. In federal court, a parade of witnesses revealed the extent of his manipulations. Executives from Hunter Enterprises, scientists from the pharmaceutical lab, and bank employees all contributed pieces to the puzzle of greed and betrayal. The prosecution presented irrefutable evidence: bank records showing multi-million-dollar transfers to Cayman Islands accounts, encrypted emails detailing the poisoning plan, and footage from the mansion's security cameras. The most damning evidence came with the presentation of Catherine's diary, which revealed that she had uncovered not only Edward's financial manipulations, but also a much larger corporate corruption scheme. In exchange for a plea deal, Samantha provided crucial details about Catherine's murder. Her confession, made in a federal courtroom adorned with mahogany panels, left the audience in shock. She described how Edward had meticulously planned Catherine's death, using her illness to mask the effects of the poison. He said it was like high-level chess, Samantha testified, her trembling hands resting on the marble table. Every piece had to move at just the right time. The verdict was unanimous. Edward Maxwell was sentenced to 3 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole. His assets were seized, his accounts frozen, and his name removed from all the family's charitable institutions. In his sentencing, the judge emphasized the particularly heinous nature of his crimes, not just financial, but the familial betrayal that underscored them. At the Maxwell mansion, Hunter's recovery continues steadily. The treatment program developed by Swiss specialists has proven effective, though slow. In the mornings, he practices Tai Chi in the winter garden, surrounded by rare orchids and Fendi furniture. In the afternoons, private gym sessions help him regain his physical strength. Florence, no longer officially his nurse, remains a constant presence in the Maxwells' lives. Her relationship with the family has evolved into something far deeper than professional. She now occupies a suite on the mansion's main floor, decorated with Ralph Lauren home pieces that reflect her refined yet understated taste. Aiden's transformation has astonished everyone. The boy who spent 2 years in silence now captivates visitors with his eloquence and musical talent. His sessions with a specialized child therapist held in the mansion's library among rare first editions and European antiques have revealed extraordinary resilience. "I knew I had to protect Daddy," he explains during one session, his fingers playing with a miniature Bugatti car. "Mummy taught me that sometimes silence can be stronger than words." Hunter Enterprises has undergone a complete restructuring. Though still CEO, Hunter has implemented a new model of corporate governance. The board has been overhauled, with experts in business ethics and sustainability taking key positions. The pharmaceutical division, once the hub of Edwards' illicit activities, has been entirely reformed, now focusing on transparent and ethically responsible research. In a surprising decision, Hunter established the Catherine Maxwell Foundation, dedicated to supporting research on pharmaceutical safety and corporate ethics. The foundation's first project? A toxic substance detection system that could have saved Catherine's life. The Maxwell mansion, once a symbol of power and opulence, has become a true home. The million-dollar artworks still hang on the walls, but they now share space with family photographs and Aiden's drawings. The security system has been completely updated, with protocols designed by the same specialists who helped Florence expose Edward. Samantha, under house arrest in a monitored apartment, spends her time writing a book about her experience. Her confession and cooperation significantly reduced her sentence, but the weight of her involvement in the crimes continues to haunt her. On a particularly meaningful afternoon, Hunter finds Aiden and Florence in the backyard garden. The boy is playing a self-composed piece on a portable piano, while Florence watches proudly. The scene touches something deep in Hunter, a sense of peace he hasn't felt since before Catherine's death. "She'd be proud," he says, sitting beside Florence on the Italian marble bench. "Of all of us." Florence smiles, her gaze shifting between father and son. "She is. In her own way, she guided us here." The media remains fascinated by the Maxwell story. Weekly offers for books and film adaptations pour in, all politely declined. Hunter understands that some stories are too precious to be commercialized. At the newly renovated Hunter Enterprises headquarters, now featuring a contemporary knoll design, Hunter implements significant cultural changes. Transparency becomes the new standard. Board meetings are live-streamed for shareholders, major decisions are made with public input, and an independent ethics committee oversees all operations. The Maxwell story, once shrouded in darkness, is now one of hope, resilience, and renewal. As Florence watches Aiden flourish and Hunter rebuild, she knows that the legacy they are creating will endure, not because of their wealth, but because of the integrity and courage that emerged from their trials. The past 6 months have shown that true strength comes not from power or riches, but from the love and truth that bind a family together. And as the autumn leaves fall in Chicago, the Maxwells' future seems brighter than ever. The Maxwell empire not only survived the scandal, it emerged stronger, more ethical, and more human. After an initial drop, the company's stock began a steady recovery, fueled by its new philosophy of transparent governance. In a decision that surprised the corporate world, Hunter announced that 30% of the company's annual profits would be directed to social causes, with a special focus on child protection and medical research. "Some may call this poor financial management," he declared at a press conference at the Peninsula, Chicago. "I call it the only morally acceptable management." The relationship between Florence and the Maxwells continues to deepen. Although her mission as a nurse officially ended months ago, she has become an indispensable part of the family. Her presence brings a balance neither Hunter nor Aiden knew they needed. One special evening, during a dinner served on fine Hermes porcelain, Aidan makes a surprising announcement. He wants to give a public recital. Not only that, he wants to perform the compositions he created during his 2 years of silence, each piece telling a part of his story. The recital takes place at the Symphony Center, its gilded walls bearing witness to an extraordinary moment. Aidan, impeccable in his miniature Tom Ford tuxedo, captivates the audience not only with his musical talent, but with the story his compositions tell, a journey from silence to redemption. In the front row, Hunter holds Florence's hand as he watches his son. Silent tears run down his face as Aidan plays the final piece, a composition titled For Mom. The notes carry not just sorrow, but also hope, love, and the promise of a better future. After the recital, in the privacy of the Rolls-Royce limousine taking them back to the mansion, Hunter surprises Florence with a heartfelt request. He asks her to date him. Aidan, who apparently already knew his father's intentions, smiles approvingly. The Maxwell mansion, once a backdrop for betrayal and pain, has become a symbol of rebirth. The gardens, redesigned with Aidan's input, now include a memorial for Catherine. Not a somber monument, but a living space filled with flowers and music, featuring an outdoor piano where Aidan often plays. The Maxwell corporate empire remains vast and profitable, but its priorities have fundamentally changed. Hunter implements work-life balance policies, establishes childcare facilities in the offices, and launches mentorship programs. Hunter Enterprises becomes a model for how economic power can coexist with social responsibility. In his cell at a maximum security federal prison, Edward periodically receives updates about the transformations at the company he once coveted. Every piece of good news, every ethics award, every philanthropic initiative serves as an additional punishment, a constant reminder that his brother not only survived, but turned the Maxwell legacy into something greater and better than ever before. One afternoon, as the Chicago sun paints the sky in shades of pink and gold, Hunter, Florence, and Aidan sit in the mansion's winter garden. The boy plays piano, his notes blending with the sound of the marble fountain. Florence pours tea into Wedgwood porcelain, a ritual that after everything that happened holds new meaning. Sometimes, Aidan says, pausing his music, I still miss being quiet. Hunter and Florence exchange understanding glances. Aidan's silence, which was once a prison, has become a strength, a reminder that sometimes losing one's voice is the first step to finding the truth. The Maxwell mansion, with its Italian marble corridors and priceless artwork, is no longer merely a display of material wealth. It has become a true home, a place where love triumphed over greed, where truth defeated betrayal, and where a family found its redemption. And so, as the sun sets over Chicago, three people united by fate and strengthened by adversity look forward to their future together. The Maxwell empire endures, no longer as a monument to unchecked ambition, but as a testament to the transformative power of love, truth, and courage. The price of silence was steep, but the value of redemption proved incalculable. 5 years have passed since the events that transformed the Maxwell family. The mansion in Gold Coast, still majestic with its classical architecture and immaculate gardens, now pulses with a different energy. The sound of Aidan's piano, now at 10 years old, flows through the halls adorned with a harmonious mix of contemporary art and family photographs. Hunter and Florence married in an intimate ceremony in the mansion's gardens, with Aidan playing the wedding march in a composition of his own. The Maxwell empire not only survived the storm, but emerged stronger and more humane. Hunter Enterprises has become a Harvard case study on corporate transformation and ethical governance. Catherine's legacy lives on through the foundation that bears her name. The Catherine Maxwell Corporate Ethics Program has already trained over 1,000 executives, while its pharmaceutical safety initiatives have saved countless lives. Following in his mother's footsteps, Aidan actively participates in the foundation's charitable activities, using his music to raise funds and awareness. In his office atop the Hunter Enterprises Tower, Hunter keeps 2 photographs on his Ligne Rosé desk, one of Catherine smiling during her last summer, and another more recent photo of himself, Florence, and Aidan on their vacation in Tuscany. The scars from the poisoning have never fully disappeared. Some days are harder than others, but he has learned to live with them, turning his experience into strength to help others. The Maxwell story is no longer defined by betrayal or silence, but by the resilience, love, and truth that brought them back together. As the sound of Aidan's piano fills the mansion, it carries with it the promise of a brighter, more meaningful legacy for generations to come. Edward serves his sentence in a maximum security federal prison. His appeals have all been denied, and his name has been completely erased from the official history of the Maxwell family. Occasionally, he receives updates about the continued success of the company he tried to destroy, each piece of news a bitter reminder of all he has lost. Samantha, after serving her reduced sentence, has dedicated herself to working with organizations that help people escape manipulative relationships. Her story of redemption, though complex, stands as a cautionary tale about the cost of unchecked ambition. Aidan grew into an extraordinary young man, blending his mother's musical talent with his father's business instincts. His 2 years of silence shaped him into a keen observer of human nature. He never forgot the lessons of that time, how silence can sometimes be more powerful than words, and how the truth always finds its way to the light. The Maxwell Mansion, once a symbol of power and status, has become a true home. The valuable artwork and designer furniture remain, but now they share space with the marks of a real family life. Sheet music scattered across the Steinway piano, photographs of family moments, and Aidan's drawings taped to the door of the Sub-Zero refrigerator. Florence brought not only her love and dedication to the family, but also a new perspective on wealth and success. Her gentle yet firm influence helped transform the Maxwell empire from a monument to ambition into an instrument for positive change in the world. Sunday evenings at the Maxwell Mansion have become a cherished tradition, with special dinners where Aidan performs his latest compositions. On one such night, he surprised everyone with a piece titled The Price of Silence, a complex composition that tells, through music, his family's journey from darkness to light. The Maxwell legacy endures, no longer as a tale of power and betrayal, but as a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. The scars remain, but they have become valuable lessons about the importance of truth, love, and family. And so, the Maxwell Mansion remains in the heart of Chicago, no longer a fortress of secrets but a beacon of hope. Its lights shine brightly over the city at night, while Aidan's music floats through the gardens, telling a story of loss, love, and redemption, a story that proves that sometimes losing everything is the only way to find what truly matters. If this story touched you in any way and sparked your curiosity for tales filled with emotion and inspiration, don't stop here. Subscribe to our channel, turn on notifications, and stay tuned for new stories that might just change the way you see life. Each video is an invitation to explore narratives that resonate deeply with the heart. Speaking of which, if you missed our last story, check out what happened. A strict father imposes his will, forcing his son to accept an arranged marriage with a young woman from a wealthy family. But despite her fortune, she is deaf-mute, a detail that stirs fears and doubts in the young man's heart. However, the story takes an unexpected turn on their wedding night, when she shatters all expectations by saying something no one could have imagined. Want to know what happened and how that one sentence changed everything? Click on the video now appearing on your screen and get ready for an emotional story full of surprises. See you there.